TomoNews presents Pest Control.
Deadly spiders swarm out from bananas, forcing family to flee. A UK family fled their home in terror when hundreds of deadly spiders swarmed out of a bunch of bananas. Jamie Roberts spotted white patches on the fruit and first thought it was mold, but later realized the bananas were infested with a spider nest. Pest controllers advised the family to leave immediately. The family was only allowed back 3 days later after the home was extensively fumigated. The spiders have not been officially identified, but the family believes they could have been the world's most poisonous Brazilian wandering spider. Got a banana in your plastic bag? You might want to double check it.
Deadly spiders burst out of banana bunch. A mom and her 7-month-old son were forced out of their home in England for 3 days after a cluster of spiders burst out of bananas from a local supermarket. Gemma Price from County Durham picked off a banana from a bunch she bought at an Asda store on Monday. As she peeled the skin off, a white sac, which she hadn't noticed before, broke, and a bunch of baby spiders started crawling down her hands in pajamas. Price quickly called Britain's emergency number and was told to evacuate immediately and not go back. Price and her son moved to her mother's home across the road. Price said when she called Asda's Stanley branch, the store manager requested that she bring the spiders and banana to customer service for a refund. She then contacted the head office the next day, but they only told her to shake the spiders off your son's clothes and offered her a £50 voucher. Pest control specialists sprayed the property thoroughly. 3 days later, Price and her son were allowed back into their home. Pest control later confirmed that the species in question were Brazilian wandering spiders, whose venom can kill an adult in 2 hours. Male patients often develop painful erections as they die an agonizing death. Asda said their bananas are washed, sprayed, and manually checked for quality and stowaways before being transported to the UK. The company continued to say that as incidents like this are rare, they understand how upset Price is, and they're in contact with her to find a resolution. An Asda spokesperson reassured customers that the chances of finding a spider in their bananas is low. It's even less likely that a tropical spider could survive outside of its warm climate, Asda said.
More than 1 million cockroaches have escaped from a farm in Jiangsu, China, after an unknown suspect busted open the facility they were staying in. Wang Pengsheng bred the cockroaches for use in traditional medicine, feeding them fruits and other foods. A section of the greenhouse they were bred in was busted open and the pests spilled out. Disease control are now investigating ways to stamp out the problem, but it doesn't look good for Mr. Peng Sheng, who claims he is out thousands of dollars. He had expected to make around $160 for every kilogram of cockroaches he sold.
Genetically modified mosquitoes could be released in the Florida Keys. Millions of genetically modified mosquitoes could be released in the Florida Keys if authorities grant permission to proceed with an experiment that aims to fight against dengue and chikungunya, which are primarily spread by Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. British biofirm Oxitec genetically modified Aedes aegypti mosquitoes by breeding them with fragments of genes from the herpes simplex virus, E. coli bacteria, coral, and cabbage. The synthetic DNA does not kill the mosquitoes or pose a threat to other organisms, but it kills mosquito larvae. Genetically modified male mosquitoes are released to mate with wild female mosquitoes, whose offspring would die, eventually reducing the overall mosquito population. In a 2012 experiment in the Cayman Islands, 3.3 million genetically modified mosquitoes were released and reduced the wild mosquito population by 96% in 6 months. Worried about the unintended effects genetically modified mosquitoes would have on local wildlife, more than 130,000 people have signed a Change.org petition against the experiment.
Apartment blows up, but the cockroaches are just fine. A cockroach-infested apartment blew up in New Jersey after fumes from bug spray built up and combusted, sending 3 people to the hospital. The explosion happened around 10 p.m. last Wednesday after an occupant had been spraying a tremendous amount of Raid inside the first-floor apartment. He began getting a headache, so he opened up a window. The oxygen from outside, combined with the insecticide fumes and a lit stove pilot light, created just the right mixture for the fumes to combust. The blast blew out the windows, bent the front door, and damaged the kitchen, but did nothing to exterminate the cockroaches, which were still swarming the apartment after the explosion. On the upside, the 3 people who were sent to hospital weren't seriously injured. Australia releases plans for its so-called Carpageddon. The Australian government has committed 15 million Australian dollars of its federal budget towards eradicating its biggest freshwater pest, the common carp. Australia's carp population has gotten so out of control that the invasive species makes up 80% of the fish biomass in Australia's Murray-Darling Basin. Adult carp, as they have no natural predators in Australia and can adapt to different environments, easily outcompete native fish species for food and resources. As current population control measures such as trapping and commercial fishing have had little effect on carp populations over large areas, the government has had to get a little more creative. To combat the rising carp population, Australia plans to release a carp-specific herpes virus into the basin. The virus attaches to their skin, gills, and kidneys and makes it difficult for the fish to breathe. The virus multiplies in the carp for about a week, and fish usually die 24 hours after they first show signs of the virus. While the virus kills the majority of carp populations, it has no effect on native fish species or other aquatic animals. Much of the $15 million the government has set aside for the project will go towards cleaning up the dead carp.
A Japanese research team has discovered a sexual pheromone they say may prove effective as a form of pest control. Sugarcane is cultivated in large quantities in southern Japan, in both the coastal city of Kagoshima and the island of Okinawa. Prior to harvesting, however, insect larvae typically skim off the root of the sugarcane, causing serious damage to crops. The team of researchers found that adult females of the sugarcane-destroying bugs discharge pheromones to attract males and initiate mating. The team was able to engineer the natural sex extractant and spread it through tubes across sugarcane fields in order to prevent female insects from finding males, thereby limiting reproduction. The discovery is among the first to have successfully used pheromones to prevent the breeding of insects and is expected to lead to the development of better pest control strategies.
2 of America's favorite wild Christmas trees, the Canaan and Fraser firs, may be driven to extinction by an invasive insect. The balsam woolly adelgid, a wingless, soft-bodied insect, is no bigger than a freckle. It reached American soil from Europe in 1900. Infested trees bend, and their leaves turn yellow. The most obvious symptom is the white, woolly balls that dot the needles of infested trees. The pest is sedentary. After emerging from their eggs, the insects remain in the same location. Upon invasion, trees produce reaction wood. Its harder texture makes absorbing water and nutrients more difficult. The only known remedy is predator beetles, which eat the insect's eggs. Park rangers in the eastern US are releasing the beetles as a form of biological control. Entomologists say the trees may eventually develop a defense mechanism against the pests, but it might take 100,000 years.
A total of 211 million parasitoid wasps will be released in order to battle the black-headed caterpillar pest that has destroyed coconut plantations across Thailand. The black-headed caterpillar, Opicina arenosella walker, infests coconut palm trees, causing considerable damage and reducing plant yield. The caterpillars utilize the tree fronds as a source of food. The Agricultural Extension Department is planning to breed and release the parasitoid wasp Brachyhepator in an effort to combat the pests. They plan to release a total of 211.2 million wasps into the environment over a 24-week period. Parasitoid wasps parasitize larvae, leading to the eventual shriveling and death of the organism. The government has estimated that drought and pests have caused coconut output to drop by 6% since 2011.
Canadian researchers discovered that they can use bees to drop off pest control agents while they pollinate crops. A wooden dispenser containing biopesticide was installed at the entry and exit of the hive. The bees automatically pick up the pesticide as they leave their hives. Experiments have shown the bees have successfully distributed the fungus Beauveria bassiana to greenhouse sweet peppers. The fungus kills pests such as whiteflies, aphids and ligers. This method, known as bee vectoring, received approval from the Canadian government in early 2013.
Scientists say crop pests have been creeping poleward each year for the last 50 years. Currently, about 10 to 16% of global crop production is lost to pests every year, which is estimated to be enough to feed 9% of the world's population. Crop pests and viruses are moving away from the equator by nearly 3 kilometers per year since 1960, largely helped by global warming. Global surface temperatures have risen 0.12 degrees Celsius on average per decade, allowing pests to live in places that were too cold in the past. The spread of pests is also caused by humans transporting crops and farming equipment. Scientists warn that the increased loss of crops to pests will pose a serious threat to global food security.